Good morning, students. I welcome you all for the online class of economics. Today we will be going to learn chapter number 4, that is theory of demand. This chapter is from microeconomics. Let us complete up to chapter number 5 of microeconomics, then we will start statistics part. Okay. So let us continue our chapter theory of demand, which I will be teaching you today. What is theory of demand? Demand, students, what do you mean by demand? When some people need something and parallelly they are having the money to pay and get that thing, then it becomes the demand. Merely thinking but not having the money to consume that thing is not a demand. So demand when it becomes when a person is want to possess something and parallelly they are having the money to consume that, then it is considered as demand. Let us see the theory of demand. This chapter we will be learning the meaning of demand, the demand schedules, demand curve, demand function, law of demand, movements, price effects and relation between income and demand. Many more topics are there which we will be going to learn this chapter. So you have understood this chapter is very vast, as in this chapter we will be going to learn completely about the demand theory. Concept of demand. Ordinarily, the term desire and demand are used interchangeably, but in economics, demand has a distinct meaning. Supposing you desire to have a LED TV, but you do not have enough money to buy it, then this desire will remain just a wishful thinking. It will not be called demand. And if in spite of having enough money, you are not willing to spend it on LED TV, demand does not emerge. Yes, definitely, demand will not emerge, as I already explained in the meaning of demand. The desire becomes demand only when you are ready to spend money to buy LED TV. Merely thinking that you want a LED TV, it doesn't become a demand. It is just a desire. So desire becomes demand only when you are ready to spend money over your desire. Thus, demand for a commodity is the desire to buy a commodity backed with sufficient purchasing power and the willingness to spend. Now the topic comes demand and quantity demanded. See here, student, there are two concepts. There are not the one concept that demand and quantity demand. When we are talking in the simple term demand, here we are not calculating how much we are demanding. We are just saying demand. We want TV. How many TVs we want, we have not said. Here we are saying we want coffee, but how many cups of coffee will help us to fulfill our desire, we have not explained. So it is a demand. We are ready to pay, we are having a desire to drink coffee, but how many cup of coffee we will be drinking, that has not been explained. So it is a demand. When we will specify in our sentence, we want 2 cups of coffee and for that we are ready to pay, definitely we are showing not only the demand but quantity demanded in our sentence. So that is the two concept, demand and quantity demanded. Let us see from the book point. Demand for a commodity is always expressed with reference to price. Ask anybody how much of good X he will buy. It depends upon price of goods X is likely to be obvious answer, definitely. Till you will not be telling the person the price of the product, they cannot tell how many units they demand. At higher price, quantity demanded will be low, and at lower price, quantity demanded will be high. Here comes the distinction between demand and quantity demanded. Demand refers to different possible quantities to be purchased at different possible prices of a commodity. On the other hand, quantity demanded refers to a specific quantity to be purchased against a specific price of the commodity. Demand for a commodity X refers to, say, 10 units of X if price of X equals to rupees 5 per unit, 8 units of X if Px equals to rupees 6 per unit, 6 units of X if Px equals to rupees 7 per unit. This line is just an assumption, student. Here we are just explaining how the mentality of a person changes with a sudden change in the prices of a commodity. Here the commodity is X. Here we have taken that if price X Px, price of x equals to 5, then how many units the person is ready to purchase? 10 units. When the price increases from rupees 5 to rupees 6, it is just a 1 rupees increase in the price of a commodity, but you can see a decrease in the demand of the person, that 10 from 10 units the person had demanded 8 units. So here it will be showing the decline in the demand when the price is increasing of the product. Here this line has been explaining that only. So quantity demanded of commodity X refers to, say, 8 units of X if Px happens to be 6 per unit. Now we will be seeing the demand meaning in and quantity demanded meaning in simple term. Demand refers to different possible quantities of a commodity that the consumer is ready to buy at different possible prices of that commodity. This is known as the demand. Here we are not knowing the quantity, but only we are feeling the demand for a commodity. Quantity demanded refers to a specific quantity to be purchased against a specific price of the commodity. When we come to know that pencil cost is rupees 4, definitely according to the price and income what we are having that time, we will be deciding the quantity demand of the product. Now comes the next topic, that is demand schedule. Demand schedule is a table showing the relation between different quantities of commodity to be purchased at different prices of that commodity. According to Samuelson, the table relating to price and quantity demanded is called the demand schedule. The concept of demand schedule includes the two things. Very first thing what we have learned is individual demand schedule, and the second thing is known as market demand schedule. Here we will be learning this demand schedule theory in two different situations. The very first situation is individual demand schedule. Individual demand schedule refers to demand schedule of an individual buyer of commodity in the market. It shows quantities of a commodity which an individual buyer will buy at different possible prices of that commodity at a point of time. Table 1 is an individual demand schedule. It shows different quantities of goods X to be bought by a consumer at different prices of goods X at a given time. So you can see the tabular data, individual demand schedule. Here we are saying in this demand schedule, we are not taking the whole market. We are learning the concept with a single consumer. A single consumer, according to the price of commodity, how much the quantity will be demanded by the person. It is considered as individual demand schedule. Let us say the table 1. Here one person how much demanding according to price of commodity. Px and Qx is given, price of goods X and quantity demanded of good X. Price of X equals to 1. When 1 is the price, quantity demanded by the individual consumer is 4 units. Means the consumer is ready to purchase 4 units of that product when its price is 1. Now when the price of product X increases from 1 to 2 rupees, definitely the quantity demanded will, what will happen? It will go down. So when the price of commodity increases by 1 rupee and it becomes 2, the quantity demanded by the consumer will become of that person become 3. Then the same you can see in the table 1, when it goes from 2 to 3, the quantity demanded again go on 1 level down, that is 3 to 2. And when the price increases from 3 to 4, the quantity demanded again decline by 2 from 2 to 1. Table 1 shows that as the price of goods X increases, quantity demanded tends to decrease. When price is rupees 1 per unit, the consumer demands 4 units. When price rise to rupees 4 per unit, the quantity demanded decreases to 1 unit. Thus there is an inverse relationship between own price of the commodity and its quantity demanded. The next topic is market demand schedule. In every market there are several consumers of a commodity. Market demand schedule represents demand for a commodity by all the consumer in the market. It shows different quantities of a commodity which the consumer intends to buy at different possible prices of the commodity at a point of time. On the assumption that there are only 2 consumers, buyers in the market, market demand schedule to say good X may be drawn as in table number 2. So market demand schedule, student, what you have understood? In this particular schedule, we will be learning the price of the goods and the commodity quantity demanded of the two consumer, not one. Here we will be learning about two consumer or more than two consumer, then it is considered as market demand schedule. So market demand schedule, let us see. One price X, that is constant. Two consumers are there, consumer A and consumer B. You can see in table number 2. Consumer number A, how much quantity demanding, consumer number B, how much quantity demanding. When the price of goods was X, price of goods was 1, then consumer A demanding 4 and consumer number B demanding 5. Student, at a single level, if we will see, when the price of goods was 1, two consumer together demanded price goods X. 4 plus 5 equals to 9. So it means at a certain level, when the price of goods is 1, two consumer together they are demanding 9 units. So that will become market demand. When we are learning consumer A, when price of goods was 1, they are demanding 4 and consumer B demanding 5. This is individual. And when we are learning together, consumer A plus consumer B demanding the goods when the price of goods was ₹1, it is known as market demand schedule. So when price of goods increases from 1 to 2, together A and B how many demanding? 3 plus 4 equals to 7. So this is known as market demand schedule. Very simple concept, but you have to keep in mind something. When we are taking individually the quantity demanded of a person for a product with the relative price, it is known as individual. When together we are taking the consumer's demand with the same price, it is known as market demand. Table 2 shows that when price of good X rises, its market demand falls. For example, when price is ₹1 per unit, A's demand equals to 4 units and B's demand equals to 5 units. Thus the total market demand at ₹1 is 9 units, but when price rises to ₹2 per unit, the market demand falls to 7 units. Thus the inverse relationship between own price of the commodity and its quantity demanded is established in case of market demand. See here student, this line what I had explained now, you have to keep in mind. Thus there is inverse relation between own price of the commodity and its quantity demanded is established in case of market demand as well. So individual demand and market demand at once at a single glance, let us see. Individual demand or individual demand schedule is a table showing different quantities of a commodity that one particular buyer in the market is ready to buy at different possible prices of the commodity at a point of time. Market demand schedule or market demand refers to a table showing different quantities of a commodity that all the buyers in the market are ready to buy at different possible prices of the commodity at a point of time. The inverse relationship between own price of a commodity and its quantity demanded holds good both in case of individual demand schedule and market demand schedule. So what we have learned, there is a single difference between individual demand and market demand. Prices will be varying, prices will be constant there in both the schedule, but when we are learning according to single consumer, it is known as individual demand schedule, and when we are learning for the whole buyers of the market, it is considered as market demand schedule. In the next class we will be going to learn the demand curve. Let us have the meaning, but I will be explaining the demand curve in the next class only. Demand curve is simply a graphic representation of demand schedule showing how quantity demanded of a commodity is related to its own price. Like demand schedule, concept of demand curve includes individual demand curve and market demand curve. So demand curve is nothing, it is a graphical presentation of the demand schedule, that is the individual and market demand schedule what we have learned theoretical and numerical. If the same thing is shown graphically, it is known as demand curve. So definitely in demand curve only also we will be learning the individual demand curve separately and market demand curve separately. So that was enough for today's class students. In the next class we will be learning the curve, individual demand curve and the market demand curve, that there were the two curves what was formed. Thank you for today's class.